Hello and welcome to the Video Marketing Toolkit, the podcast where we speak to industry experts and business owners to get tips and tricks for you guys at home to put into your own business. In this episode, I speak to Sophie Allen, who's a graphic designer and branding specialist. We have a great chat about colour science, we talk about different kinds of logos, we talk about accessibility and also mental health, as well as what it's like to run her own business. It's a really great episode. Me and Sophie have a really good and in-depth chat. I hope you enjoy it too, and I hope that you take away and take something valuable out of it. My name's Dan Dennis, and as well as the podcast host, I'm a video-first marketer. That means I help other businesses market themselves, grow online using video. And a really easy way of creating video content for all of your marketing channels is through podcasts. So if you'd like your own podcast, make sure to get in touch. It's great to meet you. I hope you enjoy the video, and please do reach out on LinkedIn to take the conversation further. I hope you enjoy. Hi Sophie, how are you doing? Thanks so much for coming and speaking to me today. For the people at home who don't know who you are, would you like to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about who you are?
Yes, hello. I'm Sophie Allen from Serrano Media, and I specialise in design and marketing. I set up the business just under 2 years ago. Well,
Awesome.
I set up the business 2 years ago. I didn't start trading until a little bit later. But yeah.
Cool. So how long have you been doing that sort of thing for?
So my journey in, I guess, marketing and design started almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
Yeah, I handed my CV in at a print shop. In swaddling coats, and because I was like, I knew I want to do something, like I want to go into a career now, I'm ready, but I don't know what I want to do. And I always knew that I wanted to do something creative, so I thought maybe I could go into graphic design, because I'd always quite liked it, took it at school, graphic design, product design, that kind of thing. Really enjoyed it, so I was a little shop assistant there, and then the t-shirt person left, and they were like, do you want to learn how to print t-shirts and do a bit of design? I was like, absolutely.
That's
like
awesome.
this is great. They knew the path that I wanted to go into. That kind of kick-started my journey in design, and then kind of worked my way up through marketing as well.
So t-shirts is where you started out. What kind of stuff were you designing for the t-shirt? Was it like people sending their designs and then you have to like put it on sort of thing?
Well, it was more that people would come into the shop and say, I want this, or I want my logo on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
It could be anything from like workwear to, I think we did like local martial arts t-shirts as well. You know, where they put like the names on the back,
written on the back.
Football t-shirts and stuff.
Things like that.
So yeah, bits like that where it was quite, I guess, looking back, traditional. People would walk in, tell me what they wanted, and I'd kind of whip up a design or whatever if they hadn't already got one.
You said that was one of your first jobs. So like, as that to be one of your first jobs, actually, that's landed like a brilliant sort of creative, like that's sort of right on the money, isn't it?
Yeah, it was my first job within that kind of area.
Okay.
Before that, I'd done like little retail bits, but I think that was it. I was in a job in retail, and I thought, what am I going to do? Don't think I want to do this.
It's like, I can't do this forever. That's not you calling.
I don't think I want to do this. I want to express myself creatively. So, they knew that I kind of wanted to go into graphic design and stuff. So throughout the time that I was there, I then progressed and learnt from their graphic designers, and was designing logos and leaflets and stuff in no time.
That's awesome.
That's how I got into print. Really enjoyed print because I didn't just print the t-shirts, I printed all the leaflets and stuff on like big printers.
Is it like thermal printers and things like that?
The printer's probably about this big. They're massive, and so they have like all of these huge rollers, and you can open them up on side panels and stuff, and they take really big pieces of paper, and if you print a few up of whatever it is that you're doing. So if it was business cards, you'd fit at least 3 or 4 rows across, and then 3 down, and then print them, collate them, guillotine them.
Do you know what? That's actually a little bit of sort of, like, I've got like this little side project that I've been doing recently, and it involves a lot of like printing out stuff, using the guillotine to cut it, sticking it like a bit of a scrapbook. And I actually find it quite therapeutic. I'm not sure maybe you would have at the time, but I was like, the way it just cuts down, it's like, that's a perfect cut, that's fine.
You should see an industrial guillotine.
I bet they're crazy.
They like stack these big pieces of paper together, and they'll have loads of them, huge run, and they put them in, and the machine basically has one big blade that comes down and trims the edge off.
That's awesome.
And then all of this edge like just
if that was my job, just guillotining all day,
really
I think I could
satisfying.
happily just do
and
that.
Then you stop it and you
perfect.
turn it round and you set the measurements and it goes down. Oh, it's so good.
I could do that all day. So if that was sort of where you started with like your design and like marketing sort of career, did you go straight into your business after that, or was there a little bit in between as well?
There was a little bit in between, a few years in between. So after that, I went into another design role. I went into a couple more design roles, and I landed in a role that was like had a lot of creative freedom because I was basically showing off what the product, the machines that the company made could do.
Okay.
So I had a lot of creative freedom with that, and I designed all sorts of specialist print, like frosted donuts, and it was fantastic.
Yeah,
I did little
fun.
Rockets as well, and I missed that. But
So this was more like you were designing bigger products for companies, was it?
they were like to show off what the machines could do. So they weren't products in of themselves.
Okay.
They were like samples.
You worked for the company, and then you were like making stuff like, this is what this machine can do then, basically.
Yeah.
Cool.
So showing its potential and stuff, which meant that when it was cut out, that was basically what we were showing off, that it could cut. So yeah, that was really fun. I got to design some really interesting prints.
Especially when you get something at the end of it, you get it as a physical thing. Like,
Yeah,
I designed this,
absolutely.
like it's in real life now.
Yeah, so I like specialised in print, but we don't have a lot of print round nowadays. It's not as common. Most of it is digital. So it's not something that, since I've started the business, it's not something anybody's ever come to me for, like specialist print. But it is something I very, very much enjoy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was in a marketing team at that point, and then through that progressed into marketing as well.
Cool.
So ended up in a social media role.
Was that at the same company, or was it a
different company? And that was a really lovely company to work for. Yeah, absolutely excellent. And
what kind of stuff did you do in your social media role? Was this in the what time of social media was this? Is this like in the age of like just when Reels started coming out, or?
Yeah, I'd say that it wasn't as common for video content.
Yeah, because there was a big shift at some point. I think it must have been like COVID time when TikTok started.
It would have been 2021, I think, but video content wasn't too big for businesses at that point.
No, not really.
Well, it's quite big now for businesses.
It started out with like people dancing on TikTok, and then Instagram sort of got wind of it, and people were making like 3-second videos like that were like so quick.
Yeah.
And then obviously now loads of businesses do it. So
yeah, and since then the landscape has changed dramatically with social media. So now everybody's making video content, and it's basically all we consume. I know we were talking about this earlier. You get trapped in a bit of a doom scroll situation.
Because like even before that, like with social media, there was the whole like where it was just all about memes. People were just sharing like funny pictures and like the same same cartoons and stuff like that over and over again. That is like classic like social media for me, I think, when I was a lot younger.
Is it sad of me to miss those days?
No, definitely.
It was a simpler time.
Definitely. Like there was less arguments, I feel like, less conflict on social media. People just like having a bit of a laugh.
That's when you enjoyed being on the internet. Yeah, 100%. So it was a bit before the video content hype kind of hit us. But I was doing a it was a digital magazine, and they posted across so many platforms.
Oh, okay.
And they didn't just have the one magazine, they had 3. So I was managing a lot of platforms at once. And it was a great way to get into that kind of thing. And they did really, really well.
Awesome.
But then following that, I moved into because I'd kind of, through my experience, gained the design, marketing strategy and social media, that kind of thing, and was always progressing my knowledge. I think at the moment as well, or I would say at the moment, at least the last 10 years, it's always a case of, if you work in marketing, you have to be a jack of all trades.
Yes, literally knowing everything. Like,
Yeah.
why do you not know how to do all of this? It's
Yeah, a lot of companies, they don't tend to hire specifically for like a social media manager. It would be like a marketing assistant's role that, can you do a bit of graphic design? Can you do a bit of social media? Do you know how to use MailChimp for email marketing?
Yeah.
And then I've had to learn all of these things.
And you pick up all the bits along the way, sort of, don't you, as well?
So following that, I ended up in a marketing manager's position to kind of oversee all of those things, which was excellent for the career. Quite stressful.
Yeah. In head, you think, I'm going to be in charge of all these things. That's going to be great. And then you're like,
and then I'm going to be doing all of these things. So that was a really nice part of my career.
I always think
Good
as well,
achievement.
when they label it as like a marketing assistant, it's like assistant doesn't quite cut it. Like, there's a lot going on.
You're assisting yourself in everything.
It's like, can I have some assistance, please?
Yeah, can I have some assistance?
Because it just goes like so over
like
the
rocking
top.
in a corner.
Yeah,
please can I
help
have
me.
some assistance?
Like, I was in a similar role as well, and it was for like a startup company, so everyone's always mucking in and doing different things as well. But then it was like, you're doing the MailChimp, you're doing the content creation, the social media. Then at the place, it was in the automotive industry, so now you're washing cars, then you're preparing cars for handover. And then sometimes I think as well, because it's just marketing, you can be the spare part, and so you also end up doing some of the admin tasks. You're booking like things in. It's like you just like get labelled with so many different things.
Absolutely. Oh gosh. Yeah.
Or anything with an ounce of design, it gets given to you. Like,
yeah. Can you do photography?
I can now.
Yeah. Let me just take a course from YouTube and then I
can do it.
But yeah, I think following that, I was like, I think I'm gonna when I start on my own, I'm just gonna take on the bits that I enjoy.
Yeah.
So as much as I'd made the effort to teach myself about all of these things, including like SEO and analytics. Or that's another thing. Can you do Google Analytics?
You have to be a mathematician and a strategist.
I've got a list as long as my arm of skills that I've acquired, but I don't want to do them all. Like there are certain ones that I don't have an affinity with, and like the data side of things, Google Ads and Google Analytics, SEO is not something that I take on as jobs for people, because for me, I don't specialise in it enough, but also I don't enjoy it. So
you don't have that, and I feel like, especially if you're selling something as a service, you want to have that passion around it. You want all of it rather than just being like, I'll do a half-assed job and like sort of pass through it.
I want to do a quality job for every job that I take on. And for me, if I don't have passion with it and I have minimal knowledge, then it's what's the point? I'd rather you go to somewhere that like specializes in that kind of thing and is going to do right by you. So if people ask, can you do this? I'm always very open and honest.
You're like, no, I can't.
Yeah. Or I'm like, if it's something that I think I would enjoy, I will say it's not something I've done too much of before, and give them that knowledge before they choose to go ahead, because I'd rather them be like, oh, that's fine then, if it's not, you've not got a major amount of experience in that area, then I've given them the choice to go elsewhere rather than feeling pressured. Because I don't want them taking a chance on me and not being happy with it. But equally, they can take a chance on me and still and be happy with it. So, but I think honesty is the best policy when it comes to that kind of thing.
I think that's it as well. And setting expectations, because it's kind of like if you don't have experience with something and you promise them the world, it's like it's going to end up turning back around, and someone's going to get bitten somewhere along the line. So just being honest from the get-go, setting the expectations and having that transparency, I think just makes it so much easier and less stress down the long run. So that was obviously your time in working as a marketing assistant, and you mentioned about wanting to, when you work and do the tasks that sort of like you wanted, was that sort of like the main drive for you starting your own business?
So my previous roles, my role as a marketing manager kind of came to an end, and I think I was looking for other jobs and thought nothing's like screaming at me.
Yeah.
I was also seeing a lot of red flags in job ads and thought I don't want to go through any. Like, I've had bad experiences in the past, and I thought I can't take it anymore. My heart can't take it, because I was getting so stressed and my mental health was taking a hit. So I thought, realistically, what's the next step for me? Because I'm looking at all these job ads and I'm thinking it's not suited for me, or I feel like there's a bit of a red flag there.
What's going on? Typically, I find the one with the red flags is when it's got a list of things you should know, and then it's minimum wage.
One.
Yeah, it's typically it's got a list of this is what we want you to do as long as you're on. Oh, it's minimum wage.
Yeah.
Like, they're the red flags for me. Usually.
The ones that are like, we're like a family.
Oh God. Pizza on Fridays.
What does that translate as?
Like, we're all crazy around here. We're like a family.
We're all like a close-knit family.
Hate that. Gives me the creeps.
It shouldn't be in business. Maybe an unpopular opinion, but I guess when you go to work, you're there to work, aren't you?
Yeah.
And when you act as a family, that's when the boundaries and the lines start to get blurred.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Because people ask favours and stuff of you, and then you won't see it in return as an employee.
Yeah.
You put yourself out, you bend over backwards to try and do everything, and then you don't get anything in return.
I mean, like, fair enough for some people that might work. It might be something they really appreciate, but ultimately, I think you're right in that it's a way of getting around people, and it's a way of getting people to do things that they're not actually getting a reward for. They're not actually getting like anything out of it. And it's things like, pizza on a Fridays, or like we buy the lunch in every month. It's like, because we've made X amount of profit. It's like, oh great, you've made like £2 million and you're buying the whole office a kebab. It's like,
we've got a kebab on a Friday. No,
I can't wait. Let's take another £1 million. So it's kind of like, but I guess it works for some people. Me personally, I just think I'm a bit more cynical, I think. So I kind of see through the lines a little bit. I'm probably on the
cynical side, but I think that's because of my experiences.
Yeah, we've just had poor experiences.
I feel like I've been a bit mistreated in the past, and it's left some deep scars, clearly.
Definitely. Work trauma is a thing.
So that's why I ended up thinking, do you know what? I will go self-employed. I've always wanted to do it. I've always been self-employed on the side, like since I was at school. With painting. I used to paint shoes, like Disney characters and stuff on shoes, which I really enjoyed. But I was like, this is the first time I've gone self-employed for the profession that I've built. And I was like, what's the worst that can happen? If I fail, then I get another job. And it was a good try. We tried.
Yeah.
But if not, I'm going to be regretting that I've not tried. So I just threw myself into it. Luckily, I have a very supportive partner. Huge shout out to him. And just kind of went from there. He's been the one that's like, if I've ever been in a point where I'm doubting myself, which happens a lot when you're self-employed and you get that imposter syndrome. He's like, keep going, you can do it. I know you can do it. You've showed me what you can do. And he's the voice inside my head that's going, you can do it. And as much as I won't give up because I won't let myself, he's the one tipping me over the edge for, you can do it.
And you need that. You need that extra bit of support, whether you're in like a job or whether, you know, you're a business owner in a new startup. Don't matter what sort of career you're at. I think you need good people wrapped around you to give you that extra boost, because sometimes selling yourself isn't enough, is it? It really isn't. Because everyone gets good at ignoring themselves and like not speaking to themselves enough. So it's like, I don't think I would be in the position that I would be without like my family and my girlfriend as well, and all my friends who are literally like, they're so amazing at like giving me support. Because I would have given up ages ago and been like, I'm just going to curl up in that hole and
That's it. And you get
cry.
in your own head about it, don't you? You need that external source that's like, you can do it, keep going, I've seen what you can do. Because if you're in your own head, you're thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? This is not looking good right now. How am I even going to get to this point? Do I even know what I'm doing? I've got almost 10 years marketing experience. Do I even know how to make a JPEG? Yes, I know how to make a JPEG.
like, what am I doing?
You doubt yourself so much because you go this downward spiral where you're like, I don't think I can do it. You can do it.
I can't export the document. How do I open a PDF?
What's a PDF?
Yeah, literally.
But yeah, huge props to friends and family for that kind of thing. For anybody that's self-employed, you know that they've got a good.
So that was the start of Serrano Media.
Yeah.
What's Serrano Media doing at the moment? What you got going on now?
Okay, at the moment, I've currently got a couple of branding projects in the works / on the table. So I've recently got to a point, this year it's just kind of taken off. And I think the first year was building a network and going out and doing networking and meeting people and getting to know local businesses and like amazing people like yourself. Like we met at Ashby Connect and here we are.
Just doing that networking journey it is, and it's just connecting with people has been a huge help, I think, in like the journey to building a business, definitely.
Yeah. And then this year it's just kind of taken off where people are like, we know who you are now. Like, hi, can you do this? I'm like, yes.
But how do you know who I am?
I don't know what happened, but from January, I've just been pretty go. And that's been really, really nice and really reassuring. And it's like definitely helped with that. Like, should I be doing this?
Yeah.
Like, do I know what I'm doing? Do I give up? No, because you've now set your foundations and will continue to do that. And it's now you've put yourself out there and it's kind of all coming back around.
Yeah, it's the fruits of your labour, isn't it? It's literally
exactly.
Like, this is what we do it for.
So I've got a couple of social media clients that I do monthly social media management for, and then like design bits on the side. I'm doing I think I've got a couple of website design projects in May.
Cool.
To just kind of do some wireframes and designing around that, how it should look, to then send it off to a website developer, because I don't do that bit. And this is one of the things that I'm like, I don't do that. Like, I can like pull you together a design if that's what you'd like me to do, but don't do your implementation. That's not my skill set. Please go to somebody that knows what they're doing. Because
it is like sometimes you can't just be the jack of all trades and do everything and have that control. And in fact, I put a LinkedIn post out today about that actually, and was like, wait, so you have to step back and build a team and let your team do it. because otherwise if you try and control everything and do everything and sit there, you'll put too much pressure on yourself and you do a crap job at the end of it anyway. So like, yeah, delegate it out, give other people
Yeah.
the opportunity, I think.
And that's it. I never want to put bad work out. It's, I guess, a pride point for me that I never want to do anyone wrong or wrong by anyone. So I always want to nail whatever I take on. And if I'm not sure that I'm going to nail it, then I'm not going to feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I've had a gentleman that came to me for a website audit, and now we're rewriting the copy for the website, which isn't something I advertise that I do, but he's like, can you rewrite the copy on my website? I'm like, yeah, we can sort that. That's not a problem. So we're currently like going through the website and making sure that all of his messaging's right, his tone of voice is right. And then he just, through that, sends me bits like, I've made this brochure. Can you go through and proofread it for me and make sure that it's like all looking good? So I kind of go through and I change the design a bit, make it look all neat and lovely, and make sure all the wording's nice. And yeah, it's a service that I'm like, I don't think to advertise that I do. Because he's like, I've done this, and can you neaten it up? What do you advertise that as? I can neaten your work up.
Professional neater-upperer.
Professional neater-upperer.
But I think sometimes as well that people just want that bit of extra support though, don't they? That is what they're looking for. They want someone who they can trust and rely on to reach out to and just be like, is this right? Like, is this what I'm doing right? And just having that expert professional opinion on things, really. So, and obviously what you do as well, it all ties into branding. So branding is one of your big things, and all of those bits that you mentioned, like tone of voice and stuff, I imagine they're all part of branding as well, right?
Yes, 100%. So I can't understate, is it?
I think that's the word.
Overstate? I can't explain how important branding is, because it's the basis, it's the foundations of your business. So it's not just a logo, which is always something that I'm saying, but also it's not just a brand identity, it is your brand voice, and then having stuff like brand guidelines there for you. So with brand identity, obviously, it's not just a logo. You want it to look nice, and that's what people are basing their opinion off.
Yeah.
That's their first impression of you. So does it look good? And my advice would be to have multiple logos. Having multiple logos with variations. So if you were to just have one square logo, that is going to be great for like your profile picture, LinkedIn, Facebook, great. But like, come to put that in on a leaflet and you're like, I want to put my logo just up in the corner. Maybe you need it quite thin, or you've got a header, a letterhead or something that you need it to go on. It needs to be tight and thin, really, doesn't it? So that square one is not going to cut it. So making sure that you have a variation, a different logo type where it is thin and long. So typically when I'm doing brand design, I'll create at least 3 logo types, and that would be square, thin and long, rectangle.
A thin and long square.
And then I typically design logo types with marks.
Okay.
So I guess.
What do you mean by marks?
So your mark is, I'm trying to think of a good mark. Audi has the rings.
Okay, yeah.
McDonald's has the M, and that's really recognisable. Duolingo is the owl.
Yeah, R.I.P.
Yeah.
He died, didn't he?
Briefly,
Is
came
he
back.
back now? Oh, I
He's
can't
been
keep track.
resurrected.
That's all. Yeah, a lot of noise on that.
But that's it. Like, when people were thinking, oh my gosh, they've killed Duo off.
Yeah.
Like, people are like, could this be a rebrand? No, it's never going to be a rebrand, because the owl is so iconic in of itself that that would be the worst marketing technique they could ever put forward. They would completely destroy their whole brand, because they've built it off this green owl that everyone knows and loves. Some people hate. He might kidnap your family. And it's the brand is iconic because of it.
And that is the mark. That is that little extra special bit, I guess, that's with the text.
He is their mark. For me, it's the chili for Serrano Media. I'm trying to think of some other like quite iconic ones. Mercedes, you've obviously got the
circle with the
thing.
Microsoft. Well, I know Microsoft's old one was like all the Windows was obviously the Windows icon.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I never, as someone looking outside in, it's kind of like that is just like part of the logo. But when you actually give it its own sort of title and identify it as its own separate thing, that's how you think, right, how can we use this like more to our advantage rather than it just being the logo, for example.
Yeah. I think another really iconic one is, if you think of a tick logo, like what company do you think?
Nike straight away.
Obviously, yeah. And they've got such good brand awareness that I'm not saying that every brand can get to that point, because that is insane to have enough brand awareness that when somebody sees a tick, they think of you. But it shows exactly how important it is. Like, people are remembering you from your branding. So having a recognizable set of logos, recognizable colors, and then a set of fonts that you stick to keep everything consistent, and that as a very basic basis will carry across from your website, social media, print. They're all going to be displayed on all of those things, and if they all look the same, feel the same, then that creates consistency, and therefore that creates a bit of trust.
Definitely. And sort of coming from a video perspective as well, it's like when I'm working with clients, like you always kind of like, you're looking out for those brand guidelines, that brand package, because when you start inputting like the graphics that follow the brand colours and, you know, subtitles that are the same as the brand's font choice, and then the logos that have been, you know, they're not just a square with a coloured background with it on and it's a PNG because it looks better on the video. You know, when you get all these things, it all adds so much value into the video. And it, like you say, it creates that consistency across then, rather than it just being separate entities.
Yeah, I'm forever saying that we know bad design when we see it. We don't always know why, but it makes us uncomfortable.
You're kind of like, oh, that's a little bit off. Like, why does that look like that? Yeah.
And that doubt creates an element of distrust. If everything is on point, looking professional, looking on brand, it's like, oh, these people know what they're doing. We can trust these, and it really starts to build that emotional connection with the audience. But it's not just brand identity; it's brand voice as well. So, making sure that your messaging is the same, your tone of voice is consistent, and does it give off your personality as a brand, show your values? So a really nice thing is when companies show their values as a business, with things like, I guess, displaying what their workplace culture is like behind the scenes. Like, some companies show that they tend to have a laugh in the office.
Yeah, definitely.
They're quite lighthearted, celebrating like birthdays and stuff like that. Just something that makes you really real and shows your values. But it can also go a bit further and be like your values as a company with ESG or sustainability, stuff like that, equal pay, employee rights, whatever it is that's your type of thing, that then adds another element of trust to it.
And linking that back into the branding and creating that full picture then, isn't it?
Yeah. So you've got visual elements with your brand identity that start to build trust because you're looking professional, you're staying on brand, you're being consistent, and then you've got your messaging and tone of voice and your values out there to display. That then adds another layer to it, and people feel like they're getting to know you and they want to be a part of whatever it is that you're doing, which is really nice. A really important thing to bear in mind is, like, I guess, the rule of 7.
Okay.
So
what's the rule of 7?
So the rule of 7 is that somebody has to see
okay.
your brand at least 7 times
Yeah.
before they commit to a purchase, basically. So if you're popping up on the social media and you're keeping that consistency and people are recognizing you and they start to build trust for you, they'll bear you in mind. So branding is about being that brand that's at the like making yourself that brand that's at the forefront of somebody's mind when they're ready to buy. Oh, I need a rebrand. I know that Serrano Media does that. I see them all the time on social media, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned this in another podcast episode with Keely. It's kind of like things like seeing brand and stuff on social media. You'll see that post coming through like 7 times, and like you want to buy the bike, or I want that rebrand, or this is how you do a rebrand. You're seeing that all the time on social media. So then when you come to actually want to convert, that's when you're Googling that brand, isn't it? And it's like using those cross different platforms and making sure that your brand is on all those platforms and not just on one platform is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I guess the final part of that is having those brand guidelines, like you say, making sure that people, both internally, staff members, and externally, if you're using external partners, contractors, if you're outsourcing website design or graphic design, making sure that they're all in one place. All of these guidelines are there for when somebody's ready to represent your brand. So they represent you correctly and not everything looks mismatched or that doesn't sound like them, it doesn't read like them. We've got like random colours thrown in, or somebody's like, oh my gosh, if somebody's like distorted your logo and stretched it.
And you've took the square one and it's just gone like that. It's like, oh no, what have I done?
Why would you do that?
This looks horrible. Even like any pictures when you just like, oh, and I want to make it square, and then it makes everyone just like squished in. It's just like, oh, please don't.
Get logo types.
Yeah,
don't squish the logos.
And that's why it's so important, like keeping it. Like, I think it's what you said is probably one of the most important things. Making it doesn't make people feel uncomfortable and it does look professional, because that is ultimately what's going to reflect back on your brand, and not just putting stuff out there. Sometimes I agree that sometimes you do have to just crack on and put stuff out there, but if you're going to put it out there, at least have the bare minimum of not damaging your brand first and it actually reinforcing your brand.
Yeah.
So a really big bit that I like about brands as well, especially with like video, is colour. So like obviously colour science is a huge thing about branding, is involved a lot in branding, but what ultimately is colour science?
So I tend to use colour psychology a lot in the branding products that I do. I guess my green is probably a good example. I can imagine whenever you've seen me, I've been in green.
Yeah, you're always in green.
People recognise the green. So it goes to show the importance of a good colour palette for your business. The number of people that have turned around to me and said, like, some people say the most random things, but I absolutely love it. One lady was like, oh, I was going to send you, I saw a pen the other day that was in your green and I was going to send you a photo of it, but I thought that would be really weird. And I'm like,
look at this pen, it's green.
This is your green. I'm like, that's not weird. Send me a photo of the pen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm happy to receive that.
You've always built a community. That's like the building of a community, isn't it? Around your brand colours, which is great. Like, I actually half expected you to pull up today in a green car as well.
Stop. I saw one the other day for sale and I was like, no, Soph, you can't just have green everything.
Like, where's the green car, the greenhouse? Like, we're going.
You've got to run that one into the ground first.
Then you can get the green car afterwards.
Oh yes, it's it's not often you see one in the right green as well.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, and it was for sale. Now's not the time, so if you can't green everything. But yeah, it just kind of shows the impact of what that kind of colour psychology can have on you, and the importance of having a good colour palette as a brand. But also, I tend to bear it in mind when I'm designing, because it's ultimately, it reflects the personality of the business. With green, people tend to associate it with growth, and like it has a bit of a calming sense, relaxation, that kind of thing. And I know that with the colour psychology, one of the projects that I've done that comes to mind is I was designing for a Next Steps website that gives young people that have just finished school and looking for whether they want to go into an apprenticeship or university, that kind of thing. It kind of gives them an idea of where they might want to go next and have a look at a few options. So with that, we kind of gravitated in the mood boards towards blues and greens, and ultimately ended up going with a green colour palette that was, we went with a bright green and then a like quite a dark green. And that whole colour palette was based around growth. So they are looking to grow with their career and move on to their next steps and grow as a person, but also has a relaxing element to it. So those times when you're looking for an apprenticeship, or you're looking, am I going to university? It's a really stressful time.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was what we wanted to bear in mind with that project, that we wanted to kind of create a calming space that was nothing too corporate, nothing that felt too intense.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine if you would have done it and it would have been like full black and white with like the government font and like the government crest and things like that? It would have been such a bore, and it would have just been like, this isn't fun, this is scary, and like not engaging at all. So it does have such a huge impact on, doesn't it?
Yeah, and for that as well, we also bared in mind with the green colour palette, accessibility. So with colour blindness, the colour palette was tested for your two main types of colour blindness, which I actually can't reel the names off the top of my head.
Oh, I wouldn't be able to tell you anyway, to be honest.
But were tested, all of the colours were tested on each other for that, and then outlined in the brand guidelines, you know, what colours aren't supposed to be used on top of each other. So that if the text is used, if the colours are used correctly, you're able to differentiate the text from the background. But also fonts came into play with making sure that the fonts were accessible. So we wanted to make sure it was a good experience for all, calming, accessible. No,
that's great. And I think with colours as well, it's a really big thing that I like to incorporate into video as well, because it's kind of, you really set the scene with the colours of what's going on. If you've got like a really intense situation, you know, you pick in dark reds, hard shadows, dark reds, things like that. Picture like the alarm going off in a space station sort of thing. Whereas if, you know, you're trying to show something that's really hopeful in the future, you're taking in greens, yellows, sunlight, lateral daylight, things like that. So it has such an effect on how people have an emotion when they're viewing a piece of media. And it can really get people to think in different ways. I'm pretty sure there's a piece somewhere where someone has taken like dramatic scenes but relit it in different ways, and it throws you off in such a way, because it's like, this is such a...
this actually.
I can't remember exactly what it is.
There was a Barbie one where they swapped the pink Barbie colours with the dark colours in...
Oh, Oppenheimer, was it, or something like that?
It was, and they swapped them, and you can just see how dramatic a
It's
change
like,
it
a
is.
huge, complete scene change. Bit of a head wobble, but I think the colour definitely probably reflects more on what's being said and what's going on in the scene, sort of thing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And you don't realise it when you're watching it. You're absorbing it, and that's where the psychology part comes into it. Because if the colour of Oppenheimer was all pinks like in Barbie, you'd be like, something's
it
not
doesn't
going
quite
right
hit the
here.
same note, does it? Really,
This
like,
doesn't feel as intense as it should.
yeah.
And vice versa. Like Barbie's supposed to be having a great time, and then it's like, what?
A huge reflection on mood. So when say someone was coming to obviously thinking about their redesign and stuff like that, what are the first steps in almost identifying a colour for them, would you say?
Ooh, okay. So with that, I guess there are a few elements that kind of come into play. I've had clients turn around before and say, I like my colour scheme and I want to stick with that colour.
They've already got their colour in mind, and
Yeah.
that's what they want.
So one of my first brand gym projects as Serrano, the gentleman that I did the rebrand for wanted to go with blue. And it wasn't necessarily an industry norm. However, it wasn't detrimental in that effect. It was nice that he sticks out from other people in the industry. And that's it, it's finding that balance as well of it suits your industry, but also stands out because everybody else is in red and you're in blue, but you've made your branding look like it fits the industry and it's very nice. So you stand out from competitors immediately. So finding that balance is also really good. So market research certainly comes into it. Bearing in mind the industry that the business is in. And then the personality, I think, of the business is the number one thing. So for him, he really liked that blue was quite forward. It's forward thinking, it's innovative, that kind of thing. And he's like, I love the colour psychology behind the blue. I want to go with blue.
It's almost like it's the future. It's, like you say, forward thinking, progressive, things like that.
That's what he wanted, because that's him as a person that owns the business, but also what the business does and the values they encompass. So that was really important for him. But ultimately, all of those things come together and decide on a kind of certain set of colours. I found that people are quite drawn to blues and greens.
Yeah.
Which is really nice.
I really like blues and greens. I think I wouldn't have them in my own brand, but when I see them out and about, I just think they know what they're doing, sort of thing. Like, it has that element of trust, security, I think, behind it, a blue and a green.
I think trust-wise, I think purple is very, it's like loyalty, that kind of thing. But green is obviously quite calming and refreshing, and blue, you're quite innovative. Yellow is very bright and happy. Reds are very assertive.
Like a lot of security companies, I feel like use red.
Yeah.
And blue as well, I think. But they're not very we're trusting you. We are assertive. We are, those are. So it definitely fits, doesn't it?
Yeah,
definitely sort of fits through.
But yeah, I could get into it for days.
Go on forever around it.
Wait, what was the question?
Well, we were talking a little bit about obviously colour science and how people would reflect, how people would best pick a colour for them. But you also mentioned about accessibility, which I thought was really interesting, because this is an area that I sort of don't know hardly anything about, and that's only a fault on myself and not educating myself in sort of that area. But how does accessibility work in branding?
So the main tick boxes that I think I tend to go through is making sure that fonts are accessible. Not every font is accessible to people. And this is more from a neurodiverse standpoint. If you've got a neurodiversity like dyslexia, it's very difficult to read fonts that have serifs on them, so the little feet.
And that's sort of like if you had an eye, It's the bit that goes across to the bottom of each capital
the
I.
feet at the top and at the bottom. So a sans serif font is without serif,
Okay.
or a sans font. So they're the ones that are just like a straight I, whereas your serif font would have the thing at the top and the thing at the bottom, your little feet. And they can be a bit like difficult to read sometimes. But also script fonts. So if you're going for a script font, making sure that those letters look like the letters that they should.
Because some of them are literally just swirls. Like this doesn't say anything.
What does that say?
Yeah.
But also, if they're cursive and they're all joined, then it's difficult to differentiate the letters from each other. So I tend to stick with a serif font is nice. It's fine. But if you're leaning more towards, if you were very focused on accessibility, because that's maybe what you deal with as a company, leaning towards fonts that are a bit more just a sans plain font that's really easy to differentiate all the letters. They all look like they should, and there's enough space in between the letters and between the lines. So your leading and your kerning.
Two words I've never heard before.
So
Run us
I
through
don't know
that,
if
then.
people pronounce it leading or leading,
Leading.
which is your space between your lines.
Oh, okay, so like line spacing.
Yeah, and then your kerning is the space between the letters.
Oh, okay.
So if you Google bad kerning, you get some funny things where some of the letters have like joined or are too close together, and they've created a word that is not the word that it's supposed to be.
That's not what they've intended at all.
As well as, I guess, making sure that your colours work on top of each other. They're differentiating okay. And if they're accessible for people with colour blindness. I know I've been to shows before where I've seen people's branding and they've chosen colours that would not be accessible to like red-green colour blindness.
Yeah.
And I've thought somebody would not actually be able to read what's on there. Which you want to make your branding quite accessible to all, because if you don't want to single anybody out, and it gives you more of a chance of putting yourself out there.
And that's it. Even if it's not for a human, the human to human sort of case, from an actual business financial perspective, you want your branding to be as front of many people as possible.
In front of as many people as possible. Yeah, absolutely. So I think, just a couple of tips there.
Definitely. And we were speaking a little bit as well, sort of looking at accessibility on a more global approach. Something that I didn't even know that you mentioned earlier, that you said that Instagram obviously has like an alt text feature for people with accessibility and things like that. Yeah.
So your alt text feature, when you put a post on, you can put your image description in there, and that just helps people that are sight impaired, because then that's whatever settings that they've got on, that's going to read that to them, and they can, with their mind, envision what your photo is, rather than just relying on your caption. Because if you put a photo on that's like, it's like me and you, and you've said, we just wrapped up filming, what a great day, it doesn't say that it's us two.
Yeah.
But if you were to put in that alt text photo of Dan and Sophie in front of behind some podcast mics, then it acts as their eyes, and it's just little things that we can be making things a bit more accessible, just being a bit more mindful.
And at the end of the day, it's like there's that many, obviously, variation with people out there. People have different thoughts, different conditions, different attitudes. I think it's just, you don't have to have like a physical like disability or something that you sort of diagnosed for. I think it can help a lot of just people just have a little bit more context as a whole, really.
Yeah.
And I think it's just helping tell the story a little bit more, because one person might see one image and then read it as something completely different to another person reading an image, but that's no fault of their own. That's just like the way they're wired up. So it's kind of like it just helps tell the story a little bit more in more of a well-rounded way, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think it's it's something that I want to try and bring across into like my video as well. So like I've always used subtitles, but I've always thought of it as like a retention sort of tool, never really as an accessibility tool. So maybe actually lengthening those captions out a little bit, slowing down the subtitles so they're not firing at you at
It
1,000 miles an
yeah,
hour might actually help
it
more
certainly
people.
does help people to have subtitles. It helps me.
Hmm.
So I'm neurodiverse myself, as you know, and it's not just for people that are watching it without sound. It's if I'm watching a video and somebody's speaking and I can read what they're saying at the same time, my brain really enjoys that. And it's easier for me to catch up on what you're saying over if there maybe wasn't some subtitles on there, and there might be some things that I miss.
Or if the subtitles are wrong and you're trying to watch it and it's like I'm having two conversations at the same time here, like that throws me off so much.
Yeah, so having subtitles on your video is really, really helpful, very accessible.
Is there any like ways on websites on gaining more accessibility, do you think?
Do you know what? I wouldn't know really off the top of my head. Nothing springs to mind. Because if you've already got your accessible fonts that are part of your brand and you're keeping everything looking quite neat and tidy, it should be easy enough to navigate.
Yeah.
I think you can put alt text on your photos.
Old text on images is what I was thinking. Or in some instances, I've even seen little speaker buttons. So if there's a bit of text or a bit of copy, click that and it sort of reads it out to you. But again, that's in a very rare sort of time that you see that. I think it's definitely things like that are appearing a lot more and more with the occurrence of AI and things like that. But I think for the future, it probably will involve seeing a lot more of those little buttons that you press. Or even like I remember seeing before having, like you say, the color blindness mode where you click it and then the whole website changes color. But it's kind of like, I think that's almost in a very extreme chances, because sometimes you click it and the whole website's flipped into like dark mode or something like that. But maybe you could still make it accessible, but without such an extreme sort of obvious sort of change, and have it still accessible but a little bit more subtle sort of thing. So.
You've just reminded me of a client I did a branding project for, and we chose blue for his branding because he is colorblind, and he can only really see, or can primarily see, blues, and every other kind of colour is a bit washed out for him. So we went with like bright blues, which ultimately looked great for the industry, really fit well with the industry, but also worked for him as a person, and that was really nice. But I think when you're doing stuff like that and you're having that mindfulness and you're taking into account other people's needs, I think that in of itself is really beautiful, and makes everything really. I love doing my job.
No, it is, and you're right, because it all ties back into the values. Like the gentleman with the bright blue website, it ties into a bit of him, meaning his company and branding is a bit of him. But also, when you're showing that you're caring for others and other individuals and being accessible, it ties it back into your company again, doesn't it? It says, we are a company that cares about these individuals and cares about these people. So I think it's right to do, and it's definitely, I think a lot more businesses will probably be doing moving forward as well.
That's it. I think we should all be making the effort to kind of move forward, and I think one of the main things is, like you say, like educating yourself on different areas. So especially with neurodiversity, it's something that I don't think we've quite brought forward to the workplace yet as to how to cater to neurodiverse individuals. And I think we're getting there. We are moving forward, but there are things that could be done better, and that there are certain things that are just small things. So with people with like ADHD and autism, having quiet spaces that you can make accessible to your staff and say, do you know what, if you're feeling a bit overwhelmed or if you just need some time on your own, you can go and work in this like breakout pod on your own and have a quiet, calming space that doesn't feel as intense as an office. Or having lighting that is quite natural light rather than the fluorescent lights.
Yeah.
That can really help with mental health. I've learnt this from one of my clients actually. He said, because he works in the manufacturing industry, the fluorescent lights, the very stereotypical ones that you get in schools and
burning down you from the top,
with the
harsh light.
tubes.
Yeah.
They tend to cause like stress, and if you replace those with more natural lighting, LEDs and stuff like that, then it can reduce stress and improve mental health, and make people feel a bit less depressed.
And I think, like you said, there's a lot more to be done with that kind of thing in employment and, in offices and things like that. I think a big, huge step towards that actually was letting people work from home, because sometimes going into an office for maybe not 7 days a week, but 5 days a week with, those fluorescent lights in a grey office at your grey computer.
A lot of people
everyone's
talking to you at
chatting,
once.
talking.
Some people just kind of want a bit quiet sometimes. I certainly benefit from like a hybrid working situation because I love to be around people.
Yeah.
Not everybody does. That's okay. But I love to be around people, and especially with the work that I do, it's very collaborative. I like to get a second opinion. But also I like to be in my own space, headphones on, going for it.
Yeah.
So having that like balance is quite important. So offering that as a solution is you bang on the money there, because it's certainly something that's been proven to work.
And like especially in a creative role, it's like, I don't know about you, but I've got like my little sort of creative routine. You go into the office, you put on the lamp, you put the smelly thing on. You're like, right,
Headphones on.
I'm in the zone. Yeah, I'm in the zone. Headphones on. Chair goes back a little bit. Like, we're in editing mode now. So it's like, I think, and they won't be able to do that in an office. You know what I mean? You're stuck, hunched over probably a desk that's not built for you, on a chair that you've had to steal from 2 rows down from Sandra because she's away.
The only one that doesn't squeak.
Yeah, and all the other chairs get stuck and doesn't squeak or something. And it's just, it does affect people's mental health, doesn't it?
And then you've got somebody coming up to you saying, "Oh, can you just?"
Yeah, like, I just need this report. Do you know how we're a family and not a workplace?
Would you mind walking my dog as well?
And it's kebab Friday, so you got to go and get the kebabs.
Oh yeah. By the way, you're on the pizza run on Friday.
Just to help us out. But it does affect people's mental health, doesn't it? It really does. And mental health is more and more of a conversation, which is great. More and more people talking about it, and I think people will forever be talking about it now, which is amazing. But you've done quite a lot recently yourself, haven't you, to sort of help out people with mental health?
Yes, so mental health's always been a huge thing for me. Throughout my life, I've suffered from anxiety and depression. Come to learn now that that's probably tied to the ADHD and the neurodiversity. Because you're more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety if you have a neurodiversity, which is fun. However, that's nice to provide context to why I may have struggled with that in the past.
Yeah.
And so it's always been on my radar as something that should be taken quite seriously. We should be taking care of ourselves. And then obviously we've talked about mental health in the workplace sometimes. Some workplaces aren't ideal for your mental health. And I think through my journey with that, and then learning more about mental health as well as some certain recent events, I know that we were at Ashby Connect, and there was a gentleman that did a talk on mental health first aid. And it was the first time that I'd found out that mental health first aid was a thing. We all think of physical first aid being a thing, but
never mental health. It was the first time I'd ever heard about it as well.
Yeah, and he'd said that when he was a responder, he would use mental health first aid more than physical first aid. And I was not at all surprised by that. And it's something that I think we've worked the last few years on breaking down the stigma with. And we can continue to do more, I think. But that really was the catalyst of, I want to be mental health first aid trained.
That was something that interested you. Obviously, you've had experience before with your own personal journey. So wanting to help others. So what does a mental health first aider actually do? What does it entail?
So if you're a mental health first aider, you are there for somebody that is going through a tough time, but you are trained to deal with that appropriately. So know the boundaries, know your rights, know the person's rights that's possibly in crisis, and how to navigate that situation. So staying calm yourself. It's quite, if somebody's in crisis and they've reached out to you as a mental health first aider, they are obviously not going to be in a good place. And that's okay. So staying calm, being there for them, not offering a solution, listening, making the point to listen and helping them feel validated in their feelings. Because if you sit there and you say, oh, well, why don't you just do this? Or you try and offer a solution, you make them feel like they're not valid in their feelings, and they are completely valid in their feelings. And that can push them further down into a spiral. It does not help. So
it's almost like someone saying, you just got to calm down, or let me just
I'm sorry.
You're right. That's
you're
worked.
right. I should just be happy.
Yeah. Why am I not just do that earlier?
It's not helpful. So not offering solutions, stay calm, and point them towards the right services. So whether that's a GP or you're calling an emergency service for them, but making sure that up until that handover, they are okay. So if an ambulance comes for them, then when they go with that ambulance and that professional, your duty of care has been handed over to them. But up until that point, you are able to sit, stay calm, listen, help them feel validated in their feelings, help them feel more calm.
And I think that's it. It's about earthing people in a way, isn't it? And like making people feel valid, allowing themselves to feel valid in their own feelings. Because something that really interests me that sticks out there is it's about sort of the offering of the advice. And although, it's not sort of to the extreme of just get over it, or man up or something like that. But it's still in a general sense of, sometimes I personally feel like if someone's coming to me with an issue, then I need to give them a reason, but I'm almost searching for, okay, this is a solution, because then I feel,
let me help you.
Yeah, because I want to help someone, but then I guess it's just thinking and being like, are they actually coming for me for help, or am I just jumping to the conclusion of I need to give them help rather than just being listening to them? So
do they need help, or do they need an ear?
Yeah. What is rather than jumping to that conclusion and being like, oh my God, I need to help you. Oh my God, let me help you. That is, in a way, is panicking and not staying calm, isn't it?
I think we're all guilty of that to a degree, though, because it is a first instinct that you want to jump in and help somebody, and that's really nice. But just taking a second before that and thinking, do they need me to offer a solution? Or if they got a solution in mind, they just need to vent.
Yeah.
They need to let off that steam and kind of calm themselves a bit. 'Cause I'm a venter, 100%. I will just go for it. I'm not looking for a solution to anything. I'm just me.
You just want to fire off sometimes. It's true. Sometimes you just want to tear apart the world and just sort of shout and just like
want to let your feelings out and
Yeah.
get really passionate about something that's happened. I don't need anything fixing. I just want to let it out.
And that's it as well. So I've definitely been in some them situations where someone's like, you'll go off on a bit and like, oh, I don't know really how to help you. Like, do you want me to do anything? It's like, no, do you know what? I just needed to say it.
Yeah.
I just needed to get it off my chest, and just having this conversation has already made it better, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And-
And if they need a solution, they will ask. Yeah. So I'm really going through all this and the rest of it and sit and listen. So what do you think I should do? Is there anything that comes to mind? Like, am I being unreasonable?
Yeah.
They will be followed up with those types of questions. But yeah, the most, I think, reassuring thing you can do is sit and listen and be there because that shows that you're there for them. You've not tried to fix anything for them. You've just been there for them.
Just had that ear and sort of listen to their problems. It's amazing. It's really refreshing sort of hearing that you've actively gone out and tried to make a change in that front and done something about it, which is great. What was like the training actually like? What was the process of going through this training?
So I think it was I did a 3-month online course. I think it was 3 months. I submitted, I think it was Christmas Eve. I submitted my final.
Oh wow, Christmas!
Yeah.
Right down to the holiday line.
Well, this was my own fault with
Okay.
the ADHD, with the procrastination side of me. And then I spent the whole day on Christmas Eve, morning to evening, 12 hours I think it took me to like finish the assessment for this last module. And I was like, I can do this.
So it doesn't have to be that intensive then.
No, it doesn't have to. No, it's not like you have to submit this on Christmas Eve. I had plenty of time. It was a me problem.
Okay.
But they give you plenty of time with the like flexible learning and stuff with online courses anyway. And kind of went through the types of mental health problems, that kind of thing. Stuff like addiction, and mental health in the workplace, as well as people's like human rights and stuff. So legislations that have been put into place and what falls under that. So mental disability, like neurodiversity is mental disability, that falls under that. As well as gender, race, etc. So you kind of go into all of the legislation as well as the history of mental health and when they used to have asylums and stuff like that. Or at least the course that I did that. So I think they'd even thrown in there about like where the term lunacy comes from and
a bit of that background context and stuff, because sometimes especially people use like words that they don't often understand what's associated behind it and things like that. So I get, as part of that education process, it's quite interesting to hear the history of things, of how things are and why you shouldn't use some terms and why other terms are better and things like that. So I think it is just all part of that education process, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
What really stands out as well is that we spoke about support earlier, but I guess now you've got these tools to help other people. You can probably use these tools to help yourself when yourself are going into like these sort of like these mental health situations. Because I know that once I start understanding stuff, and I had this journey myself when I was going through therapy myself, is when you start to understand why you're thinking certain ways or ways to help other people, it's like you can start to flip that back around and be like, I just need to like do this like set routine, or I need to do these like set of tasks to bring myself back down, or to like give myself that little bit of an extra care and attention.
Yeah, 100%. And I like that you've mentioned about therapy, because I think it's on its way to being a lot more normalised.
Yeah.
I think everybody should have a therapist, like as a standard. Because that's good.
It's like, why not?
Why not?
Nothing really bad happens
You
from getting
know,
stuff off your chest.
because that's it. It's healthy to talk about things. And I think there's a stigma around talking about things, especially with men. And it's one of the reasons that men hit a breaking point with mental health, because they don't talk about things and they are told to man up, and that boys don't cry, or that men don't cry, and cry, please.
Get it
it's
out.
okay. Get it out. If you're feeling that, just get it out. Like, there's no shame in that. It's a reaction for your body for a reason, and that's okay. So normalizing that it's okay to talk about things, and that gets it off our chest, rather than building until we just completely spill over, and that can end in that mental health crisis. And whether that takes you to a point of you've sought help within that crisis so that you don't do something permanent, or you do something permanent, it's not worth it. Talk about the thing.
Get it out
cry
there
about the
to
thing.
begin with. Yeah, get it
Like,
out.
it's okay.
Because I'm quite fortunate that I've got a really good set of mates that we literally talk about everything. In fact, we've recently started this new thing called Waffle Wednesday. And we all live apart. So one friend lives in Manchester, one's now living in Korea, and obviously I'm in Swad. But we literally sit for a minute and a half, waffle into the phone, get it all off our chest, and then it's just in the group chat then. And it's
love that.
It is actually quite. Sometimes I'm pretty bad with keeping up with it, because I'm like, I'm doing videos all day, and now I'm going to do this one. But it really does help to reconnect and just waffle into the camera for a minute and a half, and just give it to the boys, to what we're doing, what we're catching up on, how we're feeling.
That's amazing.
Maybe we should make it a thing.
Make Waffle Wednesdays a thing.
Waffle Wednesdays a thing.
Open up. Have that rant. Absolutely.
If you want to send in your Waffle Wednesdays, feel free.
Yes.
We'll watch them in the next episode.
That's it. Like, I think I'm always very much like, if anybody feels like they need to talk, please feel free to reach out to me, because I'd rather you reach out to me than feel like you're not being heard somewhere.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to be there for someone. We should all be there for each other anyway.
And I think that's a great sort of point to definitely wrap up what we've spoken about today, really, because, just talk about being there for other people, being there for us as business owners, but also being there for each other as business owners, lending that, that support out, and just like listening to people, listening to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that we've kind of come full circle with this.
That's the sign of a good podcast.
Yeah.
Full circle, back into a neat bow. But no, thank you so much for recording on, Sophie. It's honestly been great speaking to you, and I feel like we've covered so many bases on this episode. Do you have one final, you already kind of had a final message, but one final message to the audience just before you head off? And you can take a moment to think about it.
I think, just echoing my previous thought, be there for each other. Be there for each other. It doesn't matter if that's in business. It doesn't matter if that's like as a friend, a family member. Just be there for each other. Be kind.
Awesome. Thank you so much. As always, all of Sophie's information is going to be in the video description. Follow us both on LinkedIn, where we're happy to take the conversation more online. And stay tuned for more, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank
see
you.
Later. That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.